Across global financial institutions today, early careers programs occupy a particularly important position within the organisation, because although they're often categorized as talent initiatives or graduate development programs, in reality, they carry a much deeper responsibility. These programs don't simply introduce graduates to a workplace, they shape how future professionals begin interpreting the financial system itself, influencing how individuals understand capital, liquidity, markets, regulation, and risk from the earliest stages of their careers. At the same time, organisations are increasingly recognising that technical knowledge alone isn't enough. Modern graduates often arrive with strong academic backgrounds, yet many institutions report gaps in areas such as critical thinking, problem-solving, communication, and structured decision-making. These human skills are increasingly essential within financial services, particularly in environments where professionals must evaluate complex information, question assumptions, and interpret data in ways that technology alone can't. When graduates arrive inside an institution for the first time, they're stepping into environments defined by complexity, global connectivity, and constant regulatory scrutiny, and the frameworks they develop in those first months can shape their professional behaviour for years afterwards. How they interpret balance sheets, how they escalate potential risk concerns, how confidently they navigate conversations about financial products, how they collaborate across regions, and how effectively they evaluate information and challenge assumptions are all influenced by the structure of their early development. Because of this, early careers programs do far more than support recruitment pipelines. They quietly become one of the mechanisms through which institutions build their long-term operational success. And yet the environment within which these programs operate has evolved considerably. Financial institutions are more globally distributed than they've ever been. Regulatory expectations continue to expand across jurisdictions, travel budgets are tighter, and access to information has expanded dramatically as digital technologies, particularly AI, reshape how knowledge is consumed and produced. All of these developments mean that delivering early careers programs today requires a far more deliberate and structured approach than in previous years. When you step back and examine how early careers programs operate across large financial institutions, a clear pattern begins to emerge. The most successful programs rarely rely on isolated training sessions or loosely structured development activities. Instead, they operate as structured learning journeys where financial knowledge, discussion, professional skill development, and real-world exposure are layered progressively over time. Across institutions, several components tend to appear consistently. Before graduates can begin interpreting financial decisions in practice, they must first understand the system within which those decisions occur. This means developing a clear grasp of how balance sheets function, how capital moves through financial institutions, how liquidity is managed, how financial markets operate, and how regulatory frameworks influence business activity. Establishing this shared knowledge foundation early ensures that graduates entering different business units begin their careers with a common conceptual understanding of the industry, which ultimately strengthens collaboration across functions and regions. Increasingly, early careers development begins before graduates formally join the organisation. Pre-boarding programs allow institutions to introduce foundational financial concepts in advance, helping graduates arrive with a basic understanding of financial markets, institutional structures, and industry terminology. This approach has a subtle but powerful impact on the learning experience. When graduates arrive already familiar with core financial concepts, classroom sessions and workshops can focus more heavily on discussion, interpretation, and practical application rather than introductory explanations. Large financial institutions rarely operate within a single regulatory environment. Graduates may join an organisation in New York, London, Singapore, or Hong Kong, yet they're still expected to understand how their institution operates as a unified global entity. This creates a structural challenge for program designers. Development must establish a shared global understanding of finance, while still reflecting the regulatory expectations, market structures, and operating environments that differ across regions. The first 90 days of a graduate's career often shape how quickly they develop confidence and professional momentum within the business. During this period, graduates begin translating financial concepts into real operational situations, observing how experienced professionals interpret data, evaluate risk, and make decisions within complex institutional environments. Structured support during this stage helps graduates bridge the gap between theoretical knowledge and practical judgment, reinforcing both financial understanding and professional skills such as communication, problem-solving, and critical thinking. Alongside financial knowledge, graduates must also develop the professional capabilities required to operate effectively within complex institutions. Communication skills, analytical reasoning, problem-solving, and critical thinking are increasingly important as professionals navigate ambiguous information, interact with multiple stakeholders, and evaluate financial data that may be incomplete or evolving. In an environment where AI tools can generate summaries, analysis, and even draft recommendations, the ability to critically evaluate information becomes especially important. Graduates must learn not only how to access knowledge, but how to question it, interpret it, and apply it responsibly. Developing this type of professional judgment is a key objective of modern early careers programs. As early careers programs evolve, institutions are increasingly focused on understanding whether development initiatives are genuinely building capability. Traditional metrics such as attendance rates and completion statistics remain valuable indicators of program delivery. But organizations are increasingly exploring deeper measurement approaches that evaluate applied understanding and decision-making capability. Financial institutions today operate within environments defined by constant change. Markets evolve quickly, regulatory frameworks expand across jurisdictions, and technological innovation continues reshaping how financial services operate. At the same time, access to information has expanded dramatically. AI tools, digital research platforms, and automated analysis systems mean that financial information can be generated and distributed more quickly than ever before. Yet this abundance of information hasn't reduced the importance of human capability. If anything, it's increased it. Organizations increasingly require professionals who can evaluate information critically, challenge assumptions, identify potential risks, and translate complex data into sound decisions. The differentiator is no longer simply access to knowledge, but the ability to interpret that knowledge responsibly and apply it effectively. This is where early careers programs play such an important role. They provide the environment in which graduates begin developing not only technical understanding, but also the professional judgment and critical thinking required to operate within complex financial institutions. When graduates first enter financial institutions, one of the biggest challenges they encounter isn't necessarily the pace of work or the expectations placed upon them, but the complexity of the financial system itself. Even graduates who studied finance academically often discover that the way finance operates within large institutions is very different from how it's described in textbooks. Every organization has its own operating model, its own strategic priorities, and its own interpretation of regulatory frameworks. Financial institutions operate through interconnected systems of capital allocation, liquidity management, regulatory governance, and client activity. And understanding how these elements interact requires more than just memorizing definitions. Graduates must develop a structured mental model of the financial system, one that allows them to interpret balance sheets, understand how financial products generate revenue, and recognize how regulatory expectations influence decision-making. Before graduates can begin participating confidently in conversations about markets, credit risk, asset management, or corporate finance, they must first understand the underlying mechanics that connect these activities. They need to understand how banks generate income, how financial institutions manage risk exposures, how funding structures influence strategy, and how regulatory oversight shapes operational behaviour. Establishing this foundation early allows graduates to interpret the financial environment more effectively as they begin working within their teams. Instead of encountering unfamiliar terminology or fragmented explanations, they're able to recognize the broader structure behind the activities they observe. For organizations running global programs, this foundation of knowledge also creates a shared conceptual language across regions and business units, allowing professionals to collaborate more effectively as their careers progress. Designing effective early careers programs requires careful consideration of both financial knowledge development and practical workplace integration. Graduates entering financial institutions often come from diverse academic backgrounds. Some may have studied finance extensively, while others may be encountering institutional finance for the first time. A well-designed program must therefore establish a common conceptual foundation before moving toward more specialized development. Most successful programs follow a layered structure. The first layer focuses on financial fundamentals, ensuring that graduates understand how financial institutions operate and how key concepts such as capital, liquidity, risk, and regulation influence decision-making. Once this foundation is established, the program gradually introduces more applied discussions, allowing participants to examine real scenarios and explore how financial concepts translate into operational activity. A second layer focuses on professional capability. Financial knowledge alone is not sufficient within large institutions. Graduates must also develop the communication, collaboration, and analytical skills required to operate effectively within complex organizations. The final layer involves exposure to real business environments. Graduates begin participating in meetings, observing client interactions, and contributing to discussions where financial concepts are interpreted within real business contexts. When these layers are sequenced effectively, early careers programs move beyond simple knowledge transfer and begin building the practical judgment required within financial services. One of the most significant challenges facing early careers leaders today is scaling development across global organizations. Financial institutions often operate across dozens of jurisdictions, each with distinct regulatory frameworks, market structures, and business priorities. Graduates joining the organization in different regions must still develop a consistent understanding of how the institution operates, while also learning how local environments influence decision-making. This challenge has led many institutions to adopt what's often described as a global model, where global financial fundamentals are delivered consistently across cohorts, while regional instructors contextualize those concepts within local regulatory and market environments. Under this model, a shared digital knowledge backbone ensures that all graduates develop a consistent understanding of financial systems and institutional structures. At the same time, locally positioned instructors introduce regional context, explaining how global concepts apply within specific jurisdictions. This approach allows institutions to maintain conceptual consistency across global cohorts while still respecting the differences that exist between financial markets. Designing and delivering early careers programs has become increasingly complex as financial institutions expand globally and regulatory environments evolve. While many organizations maintain strong internal learning teams, the scale and specialization required for modern early careers development often leads institutions to work with external learning partners who understand both financial markets and learning design. Experienced providers bring several important advantages. First, they bring deep subject matter expertise. Financial services is a highly technical industry, and effective development programs require instructors who understand how financial concepts operate in practice. At Intuition, programs are delivered by experienced subject matter experts, professionals who've worked within financial markets, risk management, banking operations, and capital markets for decades. Many have spent 20 or 30 years inside the industry before transitioning into education, which means the examples and insights they bring into the classroom reflect real operational experience rather than purely theoretical explanations. This type of expertise allows graduates to connect knowledge with real-world application far more quickly. External partners also help organizations scale development programs across regions, providing faculty located near major financial hubs and ensuring consistent delivery across global cohorts. Perhaps most importantly, experienced partners understand how early careers programs fit within the broader capability strategy of financial institutions. Rather than simply delivering training sessions, they work with organizations to design development journeys that align with business priorities, regulatory expectations, and long-term capability strategies. Visit intuition.com if you would like to partner with an experienced early careers program provider.